This is going to be a controversial one, but I'm holding the best hybrid camera money can buy in 2025, and almost no one is talking about it. This camera was absolutely blasted for the first year or two after it came out, and it really made this brand out to be a laughing stock for quite a while. But firmware after firmware update, it's become, in my opinion, the best hybrid camera on the market. Now, I know every Sony release just seems to get people going absolutely crazy, and I get it. They make some incredible cameras, arguably the best video camera in a hybrid body with the A7S IV, the A1 Mark II with a 50 megapixel sensor, albeit with a $6,500 price tag, and then the A7 Mark IV is an all-around beast. It doesn't do anything overly perfect. It's just good at everything, kind of like Canon's R6 Mark II. But in 2025, after 9 firmware updates, I think the Canon R5C might be the best true hybrid camera on the market. It films in 8K 60 frames per second RAW, unlimited, no overheating, and now at the time of this recording, it's down to just $2,999, and that's down from closer to $45 when it came out. And that released really in a shell of its current self, in my opinion. The battery life was terrible. The autofocus wasn't great. There was no IBIS. We've heard all the complaints, but now in 2025, this camera is almost not even mentioned anymore. Everyone ran over to the $4,000 plus R5 Mark II, which is another great option, but really on the video side, there weren't massive upgrades to warrant that price tag, in my opinion, especially when the camera still overheats and you have to go out and buy a $400 battery grip just to keep it from overheating. The R5C, it's got a fan built in, and it has the cinema operating system, which honestly, it can't be beat. Until you've used the R5 menus, you won't understand just how limiting they feel. And while the Sonys film incredible 4K 120 and 4K 60 with the best in class S-Log3, the R5C actually beats that by a mile with 8K 60 RAW. Where else can you get that right now? There's literally no other hybrid camera that offers this in the world in this small of a frame. So you have unparalleled video recording options, and then just like that, you've got 45 megapixel stills. And this is why I say that it's a better hybrid option than the A7S III. Now I know the Sony shoots stills, but at 12 megapixel, they're really nothing to write home about. Nobody really uses it for professional stills. So if we're talking the video side only, sure, the Sony's gonna win a few categories. Not all of them, obviously, because there's no 8K RAW. But on the stills side, the R5C is so far ahead that it completely outweighs the Sony's video capabilities if we're talking about which is the true best hybrid camera. So really, the Sony wins in image stabilization, low light, probably in dynamic range, but not completely if you take filming in RAW into account. This wins in pretty much every single other category. Remember, we're talking hybrid cameras, so which is a better combination of stills and video? And I say that as someone who was this close to buying the A7S III just a few months ago, and then just using the Canon as my dedicated stills camera. Because the best part is it has dual menus for videos and stills, so you can easily switch from filming in 8K RAW without ever worrying about overheating over to arguably the best stills on the market in just seconds, all in the same body. And that's why I find myself choosing this about 90% of the time over the C70 that we're filming on now, which for the longest time was all that I would use for serious productions. And now it pretty much just serves as my YouTube camera in my studio, and also an A-cam for long form video, thanks to obviously the battery life, the audio options, and reliability, and not to mention the built-in NDs. So if it's a true production environment, I'm still picking the C70, but if I'm in any sort of run and gun scenario, the R5C is all that I use anymore, especially if it's a situation where you need stills and video, because it's got everything that you need. And now that the new Canon batteries came out, the battery lasts well over an hour, which is still, it's comparable to the R5 Mark II, as well as the Sony A7S III, and it also has a dual base ISO, which makes the low light so much better. So if you're shooting in Rec 709 or wide DR, they're at 400 and 1600. So as soon as you hit one of those two, the noise gets cleaned up a ton. And then in C-Log 3, they're 800 and 3200. And then there's also an option for noise reduction. That is super nice to have. But honestly, I haven't done a ton of testing with this, but from what I've seen, it does clean up the image quite a bit. And then not to mention, the 4K image is downsampled from 8K. So that's also quite a bit sharper in my opinion. Now this is where a few of you might get upset with me. See, everybody knows the Sony's the low light king. But from testing that I've seen and footage from other videographers that I hire for my company, because the Sony's dual native ISOs are 640 and 12,800, the middle ranges, say 32 to 10,000, the noise in the Sony's are terrible. They're not good. Obviously, you know, once you hit that 12,800, it's unbelievable, but you have to understand just how dark that is. Like 90% of the time for me, and I'm sure a lot of you as well, when we're in this middle range where it's dark, but it's not nighttime dark. That being said, because of the R5C's second base ISO of 3200 being closer to 5,000, 6,400, 8,000, 10,000, and everything in between, it's actually better than the A7S III at those levels. Now, I already hear a few of you typing your responses, but hear me out for a second, all right? Once it gets to 12,800 and above, there's no comparison. And obviously the dynamic range at that level is not even comparable. Obviously the Sony wins there as well. But when I'm in a house and it's a dark room, if I'm at 2.8, most of the time I never really need above 6,400. Now, of course, when I'm shooting twilights and I need that extreme low light, yeah, a few drops of water fall from my eyes. Not tears, but it's definitely close. But the majority of the time, I'm just never in that situation. Now, the only downside over the R5 II is no image stabilization, no C-Log 2, which would be nice to have. But for $4,500, it's just really not worth it in my opinion. And then not to mention from tests that I've seen, the low light is actually better on the R5C. Just slightly, but it's just slightly better. So we have a true hybrid camera that films in 8K 60 RAW, unlimited, with the Canon Cinema OS, and arguably the best stills on the market, all for under $3,000. This camera is extremely slept on right now. So what do you think? Is this camera underrated now in 2025 for the price? Did I miss anything? Or do you think the R5C Mark II will come out in 2025 like rumors have mentioned? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear why you think your Nikon's better. And if you're new to the channel, my name is Devin. I run a media agency in New England. And on this channel, we talk cameras, business, strategy, and real estate media. Hit the link on the screen to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.